Alaikum. So I'll be talking about the burnout and quality of life in spine surgeons. This is a survey that was sent worldwide. I have no disclosures. So burnout is a syndrome characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and decreased sense of accomplishment, which leads to decreased effectiveness at work. So there are multiple causes identified in the literature, including sleep deprivation, job dissatisfaction, bad nutrition, and workload. Nonetheless, there are no studies looking at burnout among spine surgeons. So the objective of our study was to evaluate the prevalence of burnout and assess the personal and professional characteristics associated with burnout in spine surgeons. So we sent an electronic survey through the AO Spine to all AO Spine members. This survey was sent 3 consecutive times, and it was kept for 3 weeks. We sent to all members in AO Spine North America, Latin America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East and Africa. So we used the Maslach Burnout Inventory, or the MBI, and the Europe Quality of Life 5-dimension questionnaires, and they were used to evaluate burnout and quality of life, respectively. So in terms of the MBI, it's actually 3 axes. So there is emotional fatigue, depersonalization, and low personal accomplishment. And this questionnaire is composed of 22 questions. And the definition of burnout is among health worker is considered when the health worker has emotional fatigue as well as depersonalization. This is the European Quality of Life 5-dimension questionnaire. It's very simple, 5 questions. In terms of statistics, categorical data were presented as percentages and were compared using the chi-square test. Continuous variables were compared with students' t-tests or ANOVA when applicable. And Pearson correlation tests were used to identify associations between continuous variables. We did univariate and multiple logistic regressions analyses to identify associated factors with burnout and the quality of life. So here are the results. So a total of 818 surgeons from different 87 countries answered the survey, mostly from Latin America. And then we have Europe and Asia, Africa, Middle East, North America, and finally Oceania, which is Australia and New Zealand. In terms of demographic data, most of them were male surgeons, 93%. The average of the age was 43 years old. Most of them were married, which is about 76%, and more than 1/3 have either 1 or 2 kids. 62% were orthopedic surgeons, 37% were neurosurgeons, and about half of them, they practiced for more than 10 years. And about 54% they practice between 40 to 60 hours a week, and also half of them they do both adults and peds spine surgery. Here is the interesting slide. So the overall professional burnout was about 30%, which is considerably high. The emotional fatigue was about 18%, depersonalization was about 22%, and personal fulfillment is about 22%. Bivariate analysis showed possible factors associated with burnout, so age and marital status, number of children, and duration of practice, as well as the work hours per week. But and also the region. So after that, we did the multiple logistic regression analysis to identify the associated factors. So we found that people who actually working in North America are more susceptible to burnout, and being a fellow or working more than 60 hours a week. Quality of life were not significantly different among 5 different regions, but what's interesting is if you have burnout, that was correlated or associated with bad quality of life in the EQ5D. So in terms of discussion, overall burnout was 56% in neurosurgeons, 29% in plastic surgeons, and 28% in orthopedic surgeons, which is kind of consistent with our results. It's a bit higher in the neurosurgeons, probably because of their neurosurgical aspect. But why this is important? I think burnout is associated with more medical errors when surgeons have this problem. So if you have stress, you're going to be having burnout. If you have no stress, you're going to be in a status of well-being. But in reality, there is no stress-free practice. So all this happens around the patient care. So if you have a high workload, there is no job dissatisfaction, burnout comes in, affects your well-being, and that's negatively going to affect your patient care. Limitation, it's a low response rate survey, but 800 is not something negligible. It might suffer from selection bias and maybe not generalizable among all spine surgeons. It is essential for the further directions is that maybe individual and organizational intervention to be made. Can we put this? To diminish the potency of stressors among spine care providers. And in conclusion, so burnout is a common condition among spine surgeons worldwide. It goes up to 30%, mostly in North America, less likely in Latin America. And there is significant association between burnout scores and decreased general quality of life. And these results needs the development of interventional programs to better identify, prevent, and manage this condition. So we all know in aviation, it's always about helping yourself before others. So always they tell you put your own mask first, because if you don't help yourself, you're not going to be able to help others. So as you see in the left-sided book, you first. Always think about yourself. I want to acknowledge all the co-authors who helped me with this paper. And finally, this is my Brazilian friend who is a co-fellow. When we were talking about this project initially, so I told him, let's do a study about burnout. He looked at me and he said, what's burnout? So here you go. The results, the people in Latin America, they're less likely to suffer from burnout. So thank you very much.